excluded him from driving any of the city vehicles and, little stuff. But we all,
Is that on? Can you hear me? I didn't know if it came on automatically or not. Is it on, Margie?
It's on.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hmm?
Yes, it's good.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Santa Barbara County Association of Government.
It's got to be one of these other.
When she touched it, it did a little thingy.
It's on.
It's on? The light's green.
This needs to speak louder.
Doesn't sound like it. Is it on? Can you hear it, Sarkis? We're on? Okay. Okay, I will call the meeting to order, the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments. And Ms. Contreras, could you please call the roll?
Directors Williams, Hart, Hartman. Here. Adam. I know he's here. Here. Levanino. Here. Waite. Here. Rubalcaba. Here. Mosby. Here. Perotti.
Here.
Clark.
here.
Murillo.
Here.
Sierra.
Here.
And Chair Patino.
Here. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Lavanino, would you lead us?
Absolutely.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Contreras, could you please read the public comment?
Public comment. The public may address the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments on any subject within the jurisdiction of the board that is not included as part of this agenda. Comment shall be limited to 15 minutes, divided among those desiring to speak, but no person shall speak longer than 3 minutes.
Are there any speakers for public comment? Are there any in Santa Barbara?
We have no public comment.
None.
None. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to item number 4, approval of consent items. Does anyone have any items they want pulled or discussed?
Madam Chair, go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
I want to make a correction to the minutes. It says that Director Lizaldi was in attendance, and actually it was Director Julian.
Julian, thank you.
Mhm.
I-
I'll make a motion to.
I'm ready.
Go to the consent calendar with the changes to the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion to move and a second to move the consent calendars with the exception of the changes to the attendance in the minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Director Hart?
Aye.
Hartman? Aye. Levanino?
Aye.
Waite?
Yes.
Rubalcaba? Aye. Mosby? Aye. Perotti?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Murillo?
Aye.
Sierra?
Aye.
And Chair Patino.
Aye.
Motion passes 12-0.
Okay, item number 5.
Item 5, federal and state legislative trips. Receive a presentation on SBCAG's state legislative trip to Sacramento and federal legislative trip to Washington.
Thank you. And Sarkis, you're here to give the report?
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Madam Chair. Good morning, directors. Nice to see you all. We recently had very productive trips to Sacramento and Washington, D.C. for our state and federal legislative trips. We wanted to thank our board members for joining us in Sacramento, Washington, D.C., and we hope it was a valuable time for you. Included with the staff report is a memorandum that we developed that summarized both trips, and so I'll briefly touch on each of them. For the Sacramento trip, that was held on March 20th in Sacramento. It was organized by our state legislative advocate, Mr. Gus Corey, and he did another fantastic job for us with this year's trip. We were joined by the Central Coast Coalition peers, which are all the 5 counties on the Central Coast and Caltrans District 5. It was actually our 10th trip to Sacramento together for us to have one voice. And we felt it was very effective. And so directors Hart and Sierra joined us on the trip. We, for the first time in our Sacramento trip history, we actually had a meeting with the governor. And so Mr. Corey was able to organize a meeting with the governor along with his cabinet. And so the focus of that meeting was his recent proposal and the draft budget related to linking transportation funding to housing. And so that was a concern raised by a lot of the coalition members, and it's also a concern that's being raised throughout the state through the League of Cities and through the California State Association of Counties. And so it was received by the governor, and so he'll be convening a working group with many different stakeholder groups to talk about his ideas further and to accept that feedback. So that's definitely one thing that we'll be monitoring with Mr. Corey. We also highlighted our US 101 multimodal corridor throughout our meetings. As you're aware, we were successful with the Cycle 1 of Senate Bill 1 competitive funding. We will continue to seek funding to fully fund the corridor later this year. So it was an opportunity for us to raise the profile of the project and let the state know that we're at the end of the tunnel now in terms of fully funding the project. And then we also made sure to raise the importance of rail improvements on the Central Coast with our meetings. And so it was well received. Actually, in the meeting with the governor, we portrayed that investments on the Central Coast in terms of passenger rail are yield a higher benefit in terms of making investments throughout the state. And so we're the low-hanging fruit, and we felt that was well received by the governor. So that was the summary of the state trip. I don't know if there were any questions on the state trip before I moved on to the federal. Okay. And then the federal trip was held March 26th and 27th. That was also organized by our federal legislative advocate, Mr. Don Gilchrist. And so directors Patino, Hart, and Hartman were able to join us in Washington, D.C. You can see from the list of meeting attendees, we had 14 meetings over 2 days. So we were going in a lot of Ubers back and forth, and it was a lot of good bonding. We had a lot of different focus topics in our Washington, D.C. trip. First and foremost, we submitted a federal competitive grant for infra for the US 101 multimodal corridor, segment E, 4E. We had a $25 million request that we submitted, so we were highlighting that grant application. We also had an opportunity to meet with the Secretary of Transportation's office to talk about our project and where we were, and so that was well received on our part. It's a very competitive program, but we feel as though we're at the end of the tunnel in terms of fully funding the project, and so we'd like to have that federal investment. We also discussed our pursuit or exploration of a federal TIFIA loan to help us with the cash flow for our Measure A program as we get closer to the construction of Phase 4. We met with the Build America Bureau, which is the department at the U.S. Department of Transportation that approves these loans, and so it was well received. I think one thing we wanted to highlight is that our project is unique in that we're asking for a loan and we're going to be paying back that loan with Measure A funds, which are not related to a toll facility. And so that makes it easier for us in terms of getting the loan from the federal government. There's less complicated things in terms of projecting toll revenues and things like that. So we're still exploring that. We're exploring whether going with the TIFIA loan or going with a bond issuance. We've been doing further analysis since our trip in terms of what are the benefits, whether it's cost-wise or fees and so forth. And so we hope to come back to your board in June with more information on that. And so that was a good meeting for us. We also, again, in D.C., raised the importance of investments on passenger rail on the Central Coast. So we were able to meet with the Federal Railroad Administration on that. And then two things similarly related. There's still discussion of doing a major infrastructure package in Washington, D.C. As a one-time infusion of funding for transportation funding. So we made sure not just to talk about our US 101 project, but the needs of our county as a whole related to local streets and roads and bridges and bike ped improvements. And so we're hopeful that something progresses in the next couple of weeks, but we'll keep an eye on that. But the other thing was the current federal transportation bill called the FAST Act actually expires next year. That was a 5-year bill, and so there's discussion right now of doing a 6-year bill. And so we wanted to make sure that we were meeting with folks and the various committees to highlight the needs of our county. And then last but not least, we learned of another competitive grant opportunity called BUILD. And so this is similar to the infra grant, where we're going to look into submitting for US 101 HOV Phase 4. There's going to be $900 million available with applications due July 15th. And so we, per board direction to pursue outside funding, we're going to review the guidelines and then make sure that we're as competitive as possible for submittal for the BUILD program. With that, that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Any questions? Any comments? Yes, Ms. Murillo, Director Murillo.
Thank you, Mr. Sarkis. What is your last name? Oh gosh, sorry.
Gotcha.
Karchek. So who do we compete with on the BUILD grants?
We
Is it
compete-
California? It's
It's
nationwide.
It's nationwide.
Okay.
So we're virtually competing with everyone because this one is focused more on probably freight projects. So it narrows down the pool, but every time they have like $1 billion call for projects, they usually get $2.5 or $3 billion in requests. And so that just gives you an idea of the competition.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Director Hartman.
Thank you. Well, I think next year, if you get a chance to go, it was absolutely fabulous. Let me just talk about a few of the things. We ate at wonderful restaurants. We had an opportunity to do a walking tour of the monuments. We do a lot of walking, good shape. So start getting in shape now. And one of the most exciting things was we had an opportunity to go with Congressman Carbajal into the Capitol at night when no one else was there. And he knew all the guards, and they let us into all the secret rooms where the Senate initially met, where the Supreme Court initially met. And Sarkis and Margie took care of us. I mean, you just kind of float along and just talk your little piece of the script and answer questions, but it was really an extraordinary trip, and thank you both of you for making it. It really was a wonderful bonding opportunity.
I think it was a great trip for Mr. Kochek also, because being his first trip to D.C. But that evening we were sitting having dinner, and it must have been, 8 o'clock or 8:30, and Salud said, Congressman Carbajal said, next time you guys come back, let me know so I can take you on a tour of the Capitol. And so Director Hartman stood up and said, what about right now? And I was hoping that he would say no, because I was already tired, but he said sure. And so we didn't get back to our hotel till probably about midnight.
Yes.
So it was late, and it was a couple of hours, but we got to see things that you would not ever see. And I've toured I've toured that many times, so thank you very much. And you guys did a good job of taking care of us and didn't lose us there. Great. Yes,
I might as well
Director
speak
Sierra.
too. I'd like to thank you for Sacramento. I'd like to thank everybody for letting me go. It is just so much fun. It's like you say, you're going from one to the next to the next to the next, and it's one day that's just packed full. Meeting the governor was extra special. Sarkis and Margie took good care of us too, and I really appreciated being part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hart.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just add that these trips in particular, I think, were very heavy on substance. The meetings in Sacramento provided an opportunity for a new governor to hear directly from the Central Coast Coalition about the unique issues that we bring to this conversation, and he was genuinely interested in hearing about the complexities of what we're dealing with. You know, we're not San Francisco and Los Angeles. We have our unique coastal challenges, and so him hearing directly about the things we're trying to achieve with the 101 widening and how that fits into our multimodal transportation system and the challenges of trying to deliver better rail service on the coast as another option for the high-speed rail system. He was particularly interested in both of those things. And then at the federal legislative trip, we've been going back so many times with the same story. It was really refreshing to be able to talk about the TIFIA loan process and how that can actually help our local taxpayers significantly by reducing the cost for the project. And I have no idea ultimately whether the federal infrastructure program is going to happen. Supervisor and Director Hartman has very eloquently said this ought to be a three-legged stool, but the federal government has not figured out a way to get to a place to be able to contribute, and I don't know that that's going to happen. But this TIFIA loan process allows us to get federal investment here without having to solve the whole federal infrastructure investment challenge at the national level to do that, and that's good news.
I think they were very receptive in that they saw that we had our ducks in a row, that we had a plan, and it was ready to go. And I'm sure a lot of agencies and a lot of states and counties don't have that. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, moving on. Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Kowchik. Moving on to 1-minute reports. Director Mosby, we'll start with you.
Nothing to report directly from my community except to thank Caltrans for stepping up on a big pothole we had in a train track. And as you know how difficult it is to get trains to get something. Somehow they found a magic wand or got the right contact or smoke signal, whatever it was. But 2 thumbs up with that. You made a lot of people in the community happy with expediting it. Thank you.
Yeah. Director Sierra.
Alrighty. Well, I was at a meeting this morning before this meeting with Kent Epperson and the bicycles. He came to the Buellton Rotary, I saw Megan there too, to discuss open streets in the valley. And he did a really good job. So, thank you.
Thank you. Director Rubalcaba.
Actually, I don't have anything, but just hello, everybody.
Just report on, I want to thank Kent for the work that he did on open streets in Santa Maria. It was a huge success. And I don't know if you're going to be able to draw the amount of people that we did. Probably not, but maybe all of our folks will go down there and spend some money. But it was really an eye-opener as far as how many people wanted to get out and recreate and have a good time. I think that was the first time that street's been closed since, I think, 1918. I have a picture on my wall the last time it was. Main and Broadway.
Your dad told you about
it? Yeah. Oh, I'm going to tell him you said that.
The county is going through budget hearings this week. We had meetings on Monday and Wednesday and tomorrow again as well, too. So if you have any interest in helping us figure out the county's budget, please come to the hearing tomorrow and add your public comment.
Director Hartman.
I have 2 things. First, on May 1st, we'll be having a 2-wheel town hall at noon where Director Sierra and Director Waite and others, Chairman Khan, myself, will be leading a group. I think it's over 100 people coming to ride. And then that afternoon we have Russ Roca, who's a national expert on the benefits of cycling tourism. And with new electric assisted vehicles, bikes and stuff, I think that's going to be a really growing field and how we can get ready for that, both for transportation and for recreation. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that last time I was here, I mentioned to Mr. Eads about a constituent who had described the roundabout on 246 at La Purísima and how in the fog it's difficult to see. That constituent came forward in a town hall meeting, a workshop with our public works and roads. And quite frankly, he's been very cantankerous and difficult and doesn't like government much. And so the fact that I got a letter yesterday about all the changes that Caltrans is going to implement there really restores all of our faith in government, and I can't thank you enough. This is a community that feels that they're an outpost and haven't been heard, and so this is really extraordinary. Thank you.
You're on, Director Adam. Nothing?
Nothing to add. Hello, everybody.
Director Mario?
Thank you. In the city of Santa Barbara, our transportation planning department is surveying people on the west side of town, which is a dense part of town. And we have a lot of pedestrians, mom with strollers, kids walking to school. And so it's to improve pedestrian, bicycling, and car safety. So that's a big push on the west side to develop a plan to make everybody safer. On May 3rd, I'm doing the mayor's bike ride again, and I was out there this weekend practicing a little bit. So I don't ride my bike as much as I want to, right? So this is every year, Cyclemania gets me thinking about it, and I do a little more biking. And then maybe Mayor Perotti will have more on MTD, but I know that they're doing outreach to riders with an eye maybe on changing some services or some routes. It's good that it's dynamic and they make sure that they're offering the best service. And they just celebrated a 50-year anniversary. We're really proud of our bus agency on the south coast of Santa Barbara County. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Waite?
Yes, I wanted to announce that we successfully have brought in a new city manager, David Gassaway from Indian Wells. He's been to 2 meetings now, council meetings. We had a nice reception for him. I think he's doing just a bang-up job. He's a wonderful man, very bright, and I think he has a very good handle on how to run our city. So I'm delighted.
Thank you. Director Perotti?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, I first would like to start off by saying we opened our largest park on March 30th at Johnny D. Wallace Neighborhood Park. And just walking up to the event on the 30th to cut the ribbon, I almost was brought to tears just by the sheer volume of people that came out that day of all ages. So this park really has something for all ages and all abilities, and I've been going by every once in a while to see how it's doing, and it's active. It's if you haven't seen it, please come out. It's really a piece of art, and I'm so happy and so proud that we did that. We just finished a series. We had 2 State of the Cities. We had a community State of the City that was offered in the evening at the community center for free. And then we had another one at the Ritz-Carlton Bacara on April the 9th, and that was an afternoon event. And both events were fabulous and well attended. We are working with Public Works on our work plan, their work plan of all the projects. So we've had 1 3-hour workshop already, and we have to continue to looking at our priorities. There's a lot going on in Goleta, and so we're trying to set up our priorities. The mayor's ride, it was peer pressure when I was approached by Mr. Franks. He said, well, Buellton's doing it, Solvang's doing it, and Santa Barbara's, and I'm like, okay, sign me up. I will dust off my bike, which has been in the garage for a while, and get it tuned up. And so I'm looking forward to that. Ours May 10th. And we're going to be doing a loop in Old Town, and then ended up, I'm not quite sure all the details. If you want to know more about MTD, they are doing a lot of outreach about the bus schedules. You can go to the website, and I don't have them in hand of what all the different days that they'll be having meetings, so that they can really inform the residents and also get their input on the changes. And I think Goleta wants to look at open streets too someday. I think I tried it it was about 4 years ago, and was met with a lot of resistance, so about closing down the street. So I'm going to try again. Yeah.
What
So
you
that's
do
all.
is you don't tell them about it and just spring it on them.
Just
They
do
won't
it.
know the difference.
Get 20,000 people who.
Yeah, I want to add to what Mr. Lavanino said. Our open streets was very well received. A lot of people weren't notified, but anyway, I haven't circled back to see how they felt about it, but the count was, it's a 7 to 10,000, so I don't know how they figure out or how they count this. And I asked people who I thought would know, and I really didn't get a good answer on how they actually count the people. But anyway, there was a good amount that came out and seemed to enjoy themselves. I know people ask me, well, what is it all about and what's going to be there? And I really couldn't give them a definitive answer on that either. But people came out because they were really curious. So it was very successful, I imagine. And we go on to the executive. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting about those guys. Director Clark. I didn't mean to forget you.
That's okay. I got nothing. But Director Williams is here. He may have something.
Director Williams.
Since you guys had such wonderful upbeat reports, so I'm gonna have a downer.
Then we're going to cut you off.
Yeah, where's the button?
Just a reminder now as the weather warms up, traffic counts are going up, and it's a reminder that without good VMT strategies and without completing the 101, it will continue being misery forever south of Santa Barbara. And then on a slightly less depressing note, libraries throughout the county have significant deficits. It's one of the issues that we're going to talk about at tomorrow's budget hearings. I think, at least half of the libraries in the county, both north and south, have significant deficits, including many of those in your jurisdictions. And it'll take significant partnership between counties and cities to be able to address that. So just something to think about in the coming weeks before June.
Thank you. Okay, we can go on now to the Executive Director's Report. Ms. Kern?
Yes, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. I think all of you have heard that March was a really busy month for SBCAG, and thank you for the dedication of these board members who volunteered to spend their time with us on these trips. We went to Yosemite, we went to Sacramento, we went to Washington, D.C., and it seemed like it was all back to back. I think we were jumping from one plane to another. So thank you for participating, because it really does solidify our messages and what we're all about. So for the training, for all, giving a plug to the training, we'll go through a little bit of that and opportunities for some of the new board members to volunteer for those opportunities as well. I included this in my update to you previously, but Lauren Bianche Clayman is starting on Monday. She's our new public information manager and government liaison. So she will be taking Greg Hart's place as her her at SBCAG. Even though Greg is really hard to replace, but I think we're looking forward to having Lauren on board and her first day. Open Streets. It was such a great event, but it couldn't have been done without the volunteers that stepped up and provided all their labor. I think it was a 12-hour day for most of them, from dawn to evening, and a big thank you. We are having a thank you debrief with them and providing food, so hopefully that will say how much gratitude we have, but it couldn't have happened without all the volunteers that stepped up. And then last but not least, again, the training session. We have plenty of sandwiches available if anybody wants to stick around. We have, I think, 8 folks that are going to stick around, but everybody's welcome if you want to stick around. It should be a fun time for all. So thanks for volunteering for doing that too. So thank you.
Thank you. Caltrans District Director's Report.
Okay, Madam
Mr.
Chair, members of
Eads.
the board, Scott Eads here for Tim Gubbins. I have a few items to share with you today. First, the La Prisma 246 roundabout mentioned by Director Hartman. There's a letter in your packet that describes what we're proposing there, or the improvements that we're making, if you're interested. I'm happy to be able to answer any questions on that as well. I want to highlight a couple things. First is that District 5 is hosting a fallen worker memorial for Caltrans folks, Caltrans employees that have passed away or killed actually in the line of duty. Since 1921, there's been 189 Caltrans employees statewide that have passed away working on the side of the highway. 8 of those are in District 5. And so we do this annually, and this time we're doing it on May 2nd at 10 a.m. in the morning at 50 Higuera Street in San Luis Obispo. So you're more than welcome to attend. It's just a time to pause and think about safety and the environment we're working in. To that end, I want to talk a little bit about work zone safety. Driver behaviors is the greatest danger to our employees that are working out on the highways. With SB1, there's twice as many projects that are under construction or work zones that are under construction in California this year compared to 2 years ago. So we're going into a busy season, and with that kind of exposure, so in 2017, there were 46 people killed in work zones and over 3,000 people injured from crashes in construction zones. Obviously, as we go into another busy season, we do not want that number to go up, but that's a sad reality of the conditions we're working in. So as a reminder, we just plead with the public at large and anybody out there driving, be patient, slow down in work zones, move over for construction equipment or construction workers, and watch out for the workers themselves. And then the last thing I want to highlight is just a quick
Mr. Eads,
update.
one
Yes.
moment. Director Hartman has a question.
Thank you. I had no idea. And I was recently talking to CHP, and they also experienced this. And I'm just wondering if there couldn't be more publicity. I know even on 154, we do our annual press conference with the commencement of summer, and we need to fold this message in. None of us wants to be responsible for hitting anybody, but particularly CHP. And again, I think people may not know, and it certainly is a message we should get out there.
Yeah, Caltrans has several active campaigns. It's a continual theme for us, but it's certainly helpful if other venues or other ways of getting that message out. Certainly helpful. Yeah, thank you.
I know you don't watch a lot of TV, but there is
Oh.
a TV ad you guys have with the kids.
Okay.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
dad's working out there, my mom's
Yeah, and that's on some billboards throughout the state as well. Yeah. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to highlight is just a quick update on the 192 bridges. 5 of the 7 bridges are now open to traffic. There's some construction activities that are ongoing, but it's available for folks to pass through there. The last 2 are the Royal Paradon. It's expected to open mid-May, so about a month from now. And then the Montecito Bridge, that one is, we've been working to replace the new bridge deck. So there's good work that's happening there, and we're expecting to open that by July. And that's all I have. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Mr. Eads? Oh, Mr. Director Mosby.
A question for you. On your newsletter, on your District 5 kickoff for active transportation plan, can you elaborate on anything, especially relating to the social equity and the disadvantaged area component? Is there anything that you could update us on? Maybe there's nothing that's already happened, but if you don't have anything in the past, maybe in the future?
So it is an active effort for us right now. We're working on a plan. Some of the key components that are going into this is a data gathering strategy where there's a company we're using that's gathering, like it's kind of a big data effort where they're actually using triangulated cell phone information, and they can tell from the speed of the users whether they're bicycles, pedestrians, or vehicles. So they're sorting that information out to gather use information for pedestrians and bicyclists, which is one component that helps us understand what's happening out there in routes that are being used. And then we're also doing a online polling survey where we're again kind of a crowdsourcing information where people can log in and add comments about what they see as needs throughout the state on state highway systems. We'll also gather information on local streets, and we're happy to share that with the local jurisdictions. And then we're also mapping all facilities through a GIS database on the state highway system in terms of shoulder widths and condition of the shoulders and information about bicycle and pedestrian facilities. All that's going to come together into a single plan. As part of that plan, we will be looking at disadvantaged communities, similar to how SBCAG uses it for other planning purposes. There's Cal EnviroScreen. Thank you, Sarkis. That uses information to tell about disadvantaged communities in specific areas where those exist. I think that criteria actually for Santa Barbara County is established through SBCAG. So hopefully that helps answer
Yeah,
some
just
of your questions.
maybe you could update us as we roll along, or whoever's seated in the
Absolutely.
seat when they're there.
Yeah,
so we can
I
see
think that we're looking at throughout the spring and summer is mostly data gathering, and then the plan is going to come together in the late summer and fall. So we'll be certainly providing updates.
And just hopefully there's some correspondence between my area. I mean, there's definitely a small corridor there, which we've talked
Yes.
about, that is definitely in dire need of something. And
Yep.
I think we definitely qualify in that area for social equity and a disadvantaged community.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and the plan does not come with funding, but it's a component to help us identify where those priorities exist, and then we'll be working with local jurisdiction staff and SBCAG staff, future grant opportunities to see where we can prioritize those dollars.
thank you.
Thank you. Director Hartman?
I just, thank you, Director Mosby, for bringing that up, and I just wanted to add, I think the Active Transportation Grant Program is focused very much on those who have and need to fill gaps. And so it's really hard for communities that don't have much of a bicycle or pedestrian system to qualify. So I don't know if in this process there's any way that we can flag that, elevate that, not at least be bound by that.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Yes. Director Carrillo?
Mr. Eads, so if I could just respectfully and urge you that the 192 bridges, we're hoping they can be done as quick as possible. The Coast Village Road is really impacted. People, use 192 to get around. And I just want to say publicly, on behalf of the people who are tortured by, if you could do it quicker, we'd be grateful. Thanks.
Thank you. So moving on to committee meetings. Calvans, Ms. Rubalcaba, I don't know if you had a report.
Okay, I'm thinking this might be what he wanted me to say. Because he
Okay.
didn't, so anyways. The Santa Barbara County and Santa Maria area is maximizing the use of vans primarily for farm workers. Is this what it is? Okay, good. Also, California Air Resources Board, CARB, has accepted a proposal for additional vehicle purchases. So those are the things that he wanted me to pass along.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other committee meeting reports, Ms. Contreras? Okay.
No more.
Moving on to communications. Do we have any communications? No? Okay. We will move now to closed session. Ms. Contreras, did you want to read the report? Okay.
Item 11, closed session. Executive Director Performance Evaluation. Government Code 54957B1.
Okay, we will adjourn to closed session, and our next meeting will be Thursday, May 16th, 2019.
Yeah, we have to come back.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Thank you. We'll adjourn to closed session. Can you hear us in Santa Barbara? Oh.
Nice of you to join us.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. We're back, and for our attorney, Ms. Van Mullen, can you give us a report from closed session?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The board met in closed session for the executive director performance evaluation and took no reportable action.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned until Thursday, May 16, 2019, at 10 o'clock in Santa Barbara. Thank you.